Hi, everyone. This is Shivani on the Ask Shivani podcast. I'm so excited today to be able to talk to you about a topic that's had such a big influence on my life and continues to. This is also such a big issue for girls as they're growing up, as we become young women, and for many, many women that I come across that I've had the privilege to work with and mentor as well. And that topic is the topic of confidence. I'm not sure at what age we start to lose it, but often it's an event that occurs in our life where we start to lose our confidence in terms of who we are. For me, I'm not sure at what age I lost it. I've seen both my kids have this amazing confidence, and at some point they start to, I guess, really question who they are. When you look at the definition of confidence, confidence is really a belief that you have about yourself. And it's a belief that you have on the inside in terms of your ability to be able to do something. Now, that may be something at work, that may be something at home, that may be something in a social environment, but it comes across in different aspects of who you are. And some people are not confident across a lot of those areas, and other people are really good at some things. And in other areas, their confidence really lacks. So it often comes from the belief that you have about yourself in those certain situations and that then has a really big impact and a ripple effect in terms of who you are and where you end up. So the best way that I can describe it is that, confidence is really a feeling. And so when you're feeling really confident, I know for me, I feel like I'm expanding and I feel like I can do a lot of things, and my belief system kicks in around that. And when my confidence is really low, I feel like I'm doing the opposite. I'm contracting, I'm becoming smaller. And when that might be in an area that I'm comparing myself to somebody, it may be the way that I look, it may be in those variety of areas where I then start to contract. And one other way to look at confidence for me is that when you're in that expansion, you're in growth, you're in love. When you're in contraction, you're in, you're disappearing, evaporating, and you're in fear. So that's just a really important way for some people who are listening to this. You may resonate a lot more with a feeling or one of those words of expansion or contraction. Others may be, oh yeah, I can see where my belief is really high in some things and my belief is really low in other things. But really to look at where you might sit on it. And if you look at the 3 or 4 areas of your life, and I usually tend to look at my work, then my family, maybe then my social stuff, and sometimes it's just my connection with other people, particularly coming through COVID. The connection of people where some of my self-confidence has been really low. And now as we're entering some of this world again, how do you make sure that you want to connect with the right people and the right values and the right ways? As a child, I was really shy and I found it really difficult to navigate social situations. I wasn't completely hiding away. I had parents who were very social. I grew up in India for the first 11 years of my life and then moved to Australia. And my confidence absolutely plummeted when I moved to Australia. And partly that was because there was just a couple of kids in my school who were a bit racist, said some pretty nasty things to me. Made fun of the colour of my skin. They made fun of what I ate and what my mum packed for me at lunch. And, my mum and dad were trying to do their best. We packed curry and rice and breads, called these thin rotis in your lunchbox in India. And so that's what they packed. And my confidence really plummeted. But even when I looked at the days in India, I kind of didn't feel like I fitted in very much. I always laugh about the fact now that I always felt like the brown sheep in the family. I always felt like the odd one out. So I had these very high social interacting parents. We would go to certain events and people would, say, so, how are you? And, even today, I've learned to do the superficial talk really well. But one of the things I love is a lot of deep conversations with people, deep, meaningful connections with people. And I can do the networking stuff really well because I've had to learn the art of that, but it's not something that comes naturally to me. And that might be a surprise to some of you, the people that know me. Some of the people that know me go, oh my God, Shivani, you're so confident. But, confidence, you can appear really confident on the outside and you can then not feel it really well on the inside, as I was just speaking about. So, it's a little bit like health. Some people look really healthy, but on the inside, they're really unhealthy. They eat really rubbish food. They don't eat regular meals. They don't sleep very well. They have a whole heap of health issues on the inside. And I think confidence is the same, that we can externally look really confident, which I'm really good at, but not always internally, which is something that I have to kind of constantly work on in terms of who I am. So as a child, I grew into my teens and particularly moving to Australia. I found it really difficult to fit in. I no longer fitted really ever into the Indian culture. And now I was in Australia and I kind of didn't fully fit into the Australian culture. So I felt like this person in the middle, this person that was hanging, not knowing where they belonged socially, culturally, religious wise, food wise. And my teenage years were not that much fun at school. I developed some beautiful friendships, and some of those people are still my friends, to this day, all these years later. But that helped a bit. But, that inner self-belief of, am I good enough? Am I smart enough? There are times even today I have to do quite a lot of work on that, because I don't just feel that constantly. I always think confidence is a state, and I'll come back and talk about that a bit later. So what did I do next is I knew that this was causing me a lot of issues. I knew that this was going to really take my career backwards rather than forwards. So I decided that this was a skill that I was going to learn, and confidence is absolutely a skill that you can learn, that you can practice, that you can master and become really, really good at, and then bring in those tools and strategies that you learn to be able to bring them into what you do. And I'll share a couple of those with you today in terms of how to actually start to look and address what is it, where your confidence may be low and what you may be able to do about it. So one of the things I did is I started to read some books about confidence. I started to go to a couple of networking courses on how to network from a social perspective on that. I started to use my sense of humor a little bit, which I've got quite a wicked sense of humor, but started to just play with that a little bit with certain people where I felt safe and doing that. And so it really is a skill that you can apply into a variety of ways, so that it not only starts to look from the outside that you're confident, but the more you do it, the more it starts to really build up that confidence within you on the inside as well. The other thing I started to do is I also started to do a course on how to read people. And, I talk about this a lot, that the art of reading people and understanding what they're into, and then being able to communicate with them in an area that they're into, really helps with the confidence, because what you do is you are genuinely interested in people, but you learn the art of conversation with people, and you learn those steps which have been so important, and I apply them every day, whether it's with kids' school, friends, their parents, teachers in their lives, my staff, my clients, I use them all the time. So who are they? What are they interested in? How do I get them talking about who they are and asking some really, really great questions? Because people love talking about things that they're interested in. And if I can be better at just asking great questions and getting them to do the work and answering that, then that also really helps the art of conversation with people that you perhaps don't know very well. So I started to do courses on things like how to read people. And I then started to just apply that, because you can do 1,000 courses, but if you don't apply that, then it becomes a skill that you don't really ever get to apply. I then decided that one of the things that I wasn't very good at was being able to write. I always had teachers at school telling me that I wasn't a very good writer. I did an MBA, and even then a couple of my lecturers said that, why do you submit things to me in dot form? Why don't you actually write out proper essays? And it wasn't something that came very easily to me. So I decided to do a couple of courses, like just short courses on writing and how to write books. And I went to listen to other speakers who were talking about publishing books and how they did that. And so I decided that because this was an area that I really needed to work on, this is one of the things that's really important, is that once you identify the area that you really want to work on your confidence, then it will really help you work out that, and then you're 50% there, then it will really help you work out where you need to take the actions, what you need to do next to be able to basically close that gap, what you need to do. So one of the things that I did was started to take some courses around that, started to write some short stories, started to write some articles, Some of those got published that then increased my confidence as well. And if I just go back to the analogy of health, when you're trying to say improve your fitness, and you decide that you're going to run a half marathon and 21 kilometers. This is not, by the way, one of my goals or passions in any way, shape or form. But say you decide to do that, you don't go out and do, 21 kilometers in the first go. What you do is you maybe just run around the block for 600 meters, and you do that for a few days, and then maybe you build it up to a kilometer, and you slowly build that up. And the same analogy is there for confidence. It doesn't just come to you because you do one course or the more you practice it, the more you trial it, you almost build that confidence muscle in your heart and your brain. You start to create those belief systems that start to strengthen in terms of who you are, and then be able to create that inner confidence around that. And then I published my first book as a result of it. It went really well. People started to write to me, and then I had enough confidence to write another book. And when I come to perhaps some recent events, like, with some of the things that have happened in COVID, I know some of my business was really well affected. The speaking part of my business was really affected. Some of the mentoring work, fortunately, went up with a lot of demand in mentoring. Some of the events and networking and catch-ups obviously all disappeared. We went virtual. And although virtual catch-ups were fantastic and still being able to connect to people, sometimes it just didn't feel quite the same. I know that for me, there's some bits of my confidence that I lost through the COVID period. I got asked, since we've started to go back and do more summits and do more presentations, the first two places where I put in my application to be a speaker, I got asked to put my CV up and send my speaker kit, and they picked other speakers over me. And I remember thinking, am I done? Like, have I passed that? And because that sense of belief had disappeared through the COVID. And so it's about, now I've got booked for more other engagements, and then your confidence starts to come up once you start to deliver other things to people as well. So confidence is such a state. But one of the things I know is that when I'm feeling really good about myself, when I'm in that expansive stage, when I'm in that love stage, and I'm really expanding and I'm feeling really good about who I am, it has such a ripple effect on my family. It has such a ripple effect in terms of how I look at myself and my connection with other people. And when I'm in that state of really low confidence and that contraction that I spoke about, one of the things that happens is that I start to find more and more faults. It's almost like this whirlpool that just starts to take over my life, because then I look at all the things that are going wrong that perhaps weren't that big a deal, but now I'm starting to look at all the things that are going wrong. I also just wanted to take a couple of examples of some clients. I work with this amazing female leader, Leanne. And Leanne, if you looked at her from the outside, very confident, very gorgeous, anywhere she walked, heads would turn, and had done amazing work around her achievements and leadership achievements at work. But on the inside, she really, really lacked confidence. And through those mentoring sessions, one of the things I learned about her was that at a very early age, she was compared a lot with her brothers. And the issue became that she just kind of never felt good enough, probably from a very early age of about 7 or 8, where her parents, she felt that almost favored her brother. And she started to lose a lot of that confidence. Although she was this very successful, amazing woman on the outside, on the inside, she really felt not good enough. And so if you can start to pinpoint at what point did you start to lose confidence, then there's a lot of people around that can help you with that, whether it's through mentoring, whether it's through some counseling, whether it's in your work and you've got some EAP or you have your own therapist, finding some support to look at that points in your life where you've lost that confidence, unpacking it a little bit and working out what you really need to do is a really, really important step. And you'll have a number of those moments up to now, and you'll have a number of those moments going into the future. But just taking some time to reflect and working that out really comes in handy. So till I caught up with Leanne, she'd never really thought about what point she had started to lose the confidence. And coupled with the work that her and I did, she also got a psychologist and looked through some of the work in terms of how she felt not good enough, and did some work on herself around those moments where she constantly didn't feel good enough in her family. And we talked about also how that translated that into her work and other aspects of her life. And we did some work around affirmations and what she can do to really work on changing this negative voice. I mean, she was in her 40s, but this negative voice that she'd had for, almost 4 decades of her life. So unless we really do the work on where we lost the confidence, start to do some deeper work on it, then that feeling, that contraction feeling, that feeling of fear, that feeling of whatever it might be, something not enough, not good enough, not smart enough, not good looking enough, not loved enough, whatever it may be, just constantly pops up. And there's a great theme that I believe in, and that is that if you don't work on what you're meant to work on, that pattern will keep repeating itself until you are in so much pain that you would just need to keep working on it. So, whether it's around a particular individual, whether it's around confidence, people will keep showing up in your life who will remind you that your confidence is low. The other example I just wanted to also give you is that I worked with a particular client who was doing really well at work, but her confidence at home was really, really low. And one of the things that we unpacked for her was, why was that? And where was she her truest self? Where was she expanding and where was she contracting? And you know what? She felt that she was really expanding at work and she could be herself, but she felt that she was really contracting at home. And when we unpack that, a lot of the things that she found was that the communication where her partner was carrying a lot of the workload at home. And I don't love the word breadwinner, but she was the major breadwinner in that relationship. She felt this duty to her work all the time, and she decided that she would almost leave a lot of the home stuff with her partner, and often felt very guilty about that. And this is a very common thing for women. I know I dive into that level of, am I doing enough? We've just had some kids on school holidays for the last couple of weeks, and I've had to work. There's been a fair bit of things going on. And, there's always these little glitches of guilt that kick in about, I should be doing enough with my kids. So she just felt that she was almost not delegating to her partner. She was almost abdicating. So he was running everything. She felt really disempowered. She didn't agree with some of the decisions that he was making, but she felt that that was his domain, seeing that she was out working. So as a result of that, our conversation, she decided to raise some of those conversations with him. She decided to raise those conversations with her kids, who were old enough to have that conversation. I think they were about 9 and 13 at the time. And really start to look at that she was losing confidence from a home perspective. She understood that she was the major breadwinner, but for her kids to understand that there were some things in how things were being run at home that she wasn't quite happy with. And again, pinpointing a little bit more detail in terms of what's happening and where it's happening and what you can actually do about it. So I just wanted to give you some examples of my personal life and share that with you around confidence. I just really want you to tap into understanding where your belief is really high about yourself and where perhaps it's low. I want you to tap into that feeling and suggest that you maybe take notice and become a bit more aware of this feeling, which is about whether I'm contracting or whether I'm expanding or whether I'm contracting. Where do I sit with it? Am I feeling fearful? Or am I feeling like I'm in love with this thing and it's expanding and I really feel that within myself? And also just in terms of what your plan of attack might be. Like if you just work out where it might be, or you go, you know what, I can see that I need some support in increasing my confidence in this particular area, then finding some support around that is a really great thing. And if you can sort it out yourself, fantastic. And you can do that by journaling some ideas down, journaling that journey down, journaling your feelings down, and just kind of getting that out of your system. And if you need that support, finding a therapist, finding a mentor, finding somebody that can really take you through that journey and help you evolve and almost learn the lessons out of that so that you can get to that next phase is really important. I hope today was really helpful. I hope that you picked up one or two little tricks, one or two different ideas. I'm going to continue to have this conversation with you around confidence in many of the future webinars and podcasts that I plan to do, and courses that I plan to do, and mentoring sessions that I plan to do. And if you've got any thoughts, I would love to hear them. If you've got any questions, I would love for me to ask them. And I'd love to be able to see how I can help the journey of your life in your work and your lives. Get better at that. And would love for you to comment, post, share this particular ideas on confidence, and let me know anything that I can help you with. Take care.